Well, this even made it more your store, perhaps.
It did. That's why we called it Nancy.
Nancy's Intimate Apparel. Well, Mom, not having gone to business school, not having taken a bunch of classes at the community center for how to open a business, how to be a woman entrepreneur, how did you learn? And like, what came naturally? Like, I'm good at this. And did you outsource some things you didn't feel as gifted in?
I don't remember outsourcing.
When you start a business, you can't do all that. You just got to do it, right?
Okay. Number one, somehow I learned to be organized.
Yes. Okay.
So that is one of my gifts that I have, is organization. And that sort of drew me into different categories that I needed to learn and to understand how to do it. So that was actually a big gift, I think, for me.
Yeah.
And looking back now, I recently shared this, and you know that I really have never been a fearful person. I just have never been fearful of being left alone as a kid or anything. So I really didn't know to be fearful of opening a business.
Of failure? You weren't afraid of failure?
I was not fearful of that at all.
Okay. So you saw a need. We need intimate apparel. I like intimate apparel. And you said, I'm going to get the money from my dad. I'm going to be diligent in paying him back. What and how did you know what to order, Mother? I mean, did you just order what you already had, what you liked? Like, how did you learn these things? You're an example of this entrepreneurship, of seeing a dream and meeting the needs. But how did you know?
I learned that nobody's coming necessarily to you to try to sell something. You have to go to what's called a market, clothing market, a market of any kind that comes through. But so we learned about the market in Atlanta, Georgia, and we stopped there on one of our trips to Florida.
To Florida, okay.
Went to that. Then we learned about one in Chicago, and I never seemed to think I wanted to go to New York City to the market. That seemed way too big.
So you learned where to go, but then how did you decide what to purchase? Like you didn't have all these pilot groups to know like this brand sells or this style sells or this color is most popular. So how did you make those decisions?
So I made those decisions, first of all, by knowing the different manufacturers or the companies, whatever you want, labels that's in your clothing. And I knew from this previous place in Midland what those labels were. And I had written them down as the ones that I was familiar with and thought I wanted to inquire about, and investigated then that they were at these markets. So you make an appointment or stop in and try to get an appointment, and they show you what you are. If it's bras, they show you different companies and the styles and whatever. And then the hard thing was learning how many of what you get. And when you ordered any of these things, you had to always order in sixes.
Okay.
That was like a minimum. So you either get 6 small or 6 medium, or you get 2 small and 4 medium. And you learn to try to balance, okay, what is a major size that people wear?
Okay.
And order from that way. And so you do that. And I learned by trial and error that the term in clothing is be careful of ordering dogs.
Be careful of ordering dogs?
And one salesman told me that, who was not a salesman. And he was like, sometimes dogs are items that aren't really quick to start selling.
Okay.
And they would know, if you were new, I had some that tried to sell me some of those dogs so that they'd get out of their inventory and they would be credited for, depleting that or whatever. And so I learned what a dog in that intimate apparel meant. It means anything in any of the clothing, actually.
Well, and I have to tell you, listener, Mom has always been known for calling a spade, right? Like there were times my high school friends, they would hope they ran into my dad, not my mom, not because Mom wasn't awesome, wonderful, and terrific, but she would just say things truthfully, right? So, Mom, you're taking who you were, who your core essence is as a person,
Right.
and you have been warned that people are naturally going to try to take advantage of you as a new business owner and a woman in this space. And yet you were making decisions, you said, through trial and error. So you were okay with a little bit of failure. If you ordered the wrong thing, oh well, put it on sale, I guess, right?
We had what was called dollar days in the summertime.
Okay, dollar days. That sounds pretty good. We still would like the dollar days, but you kept learning. You used the wisdom that you had. Well, I remember even as a child going to those marts. It's where we went and saw a Diana Ross concert in the Chicago after we'd been at the Chicago Mart. That was so fun. But Mom, in this intimate apparel store, you had it for how many years? The two of them
6.
combined? 6. It seems so much longer. You learned so many things, I'm sure. What did you learn about customers? What did you learn about clients, we may say, in the business world? How did you interact?
Well, of course, the old phrase has always been the customer is always right. And so in a small town, I probably experienced more kindness than maybe in some of the big towns of today and the big major stores of today. So people learned that this was personally me helping them. And then and I think sort of build up some trust. Now, we were in a resort town, and that meant in the summertime, our population like tripled. But we were in an area called Lake Street in Petoskey that was known as resort wear. And places from Miami and Palm Beach and so forth came up there in the summertime. So the people that shopped there were used to some nice things.
Okay. And yet it could be the blue collar worker that also appreciated nice things. Like you said, your experience was that first got you into nice clothing.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I do, to the credit of salespeople, my husband had been one, and there are some really good salespeople. And I in particularly found one salesman for not for bras, but for sleepwear and so forth, who really gave me some sound advice.
Mother, I love that. You know who I'm thinking of? The UPS driver, wondering if he gave you any sound advice, because he seemed like he was always our friend. But we talk today, we kind of give it language like, male allyship or male sponsors that realize in the business world, there's still obstacles that don't see women owners and leaders as fully credible or as perhaps a male leader, just implicit bias built in. We can interrupt it. We can train and model our way out of it, but it's still a part of this baked in reality. We're talking here about the 70s, but you're saying there was a salesman who came alongside and gave you some really truthful advice and help.
Right.
Okay. Awesome.
And he was from Traverse City, locally, at least in the summertime. And he personally came over to show me his nightgowns and robes and so forth, sleepwear. That would have been. And I believe was a Christian man and was honest and just said, this is what you need to keep in mind when you go to these big markets. You will be looked at as maybe a easy target.
Right. Wow. Male allyship for sure there. That's
Right.
and it's just a kind, caring human being that was
Right.
trying to help you be successful. There's enough work for us all, right?
Right.
We don't have to be just that competitive. That's awesome, Mom. I wonder about like training, employee training, or expectations. Like I think of you as the stores way back then, like cleanliness was really important to you, like the sense of how things looked. But do you
Absolutely.
want to say anything more about, as this now new developing business leader who was finding success, how did you interact with your team? How did you lead your team of sales associates?
Okay. Being a small store,
Mhm.
I was the main employee.
Okay. The team was you?
I was the main employee. I had a couple people that had worked for me at the beginning, and just for something to do, kind of thing, and they worked out fine. I did have one woman who came on board who I trusted so much that I could go to Florida for 2 weeks in March.
Wow.
And she took care. I trusted her to take care of stuff.
Wow. And these are the money, the deposits, all the longhand sort of checks we wrote out when things were being sold.
Right. And so when we had a good relationship, and she probably worked for me at least 4 years, maybe a little bit longer. So she worked a long
You
time.
appreciated her. So you didn't quite get into all that team employee leadership until we got to the ice cream stores. But let's hold that thought for just a moment. In thinking of the intimate apparel stores, I think of a story of one night when you put the beautiful, long, warm, fuzzy robes on all my friends. Do you remember that night?
You're talking about in the summer.
Yes, yes.
And then a storm came up and you all got wet.
We all got wet. And as a teenager, it's very thrilling, right? To have girls and boys who are suddenly marooned at your home because of a storm.
And we lived on the water.
We lived on the water. So I don't know how many boats or how many kids were there, but in that day, it was a sense of you and Dad made the call that everybody should spend the night because it was too dangerous to go home on the water in their boats. So I'm thinking there was somewhere 10, 12 kids, and we were drenched, and Mom and Dad got everybody to get their clothes off and put all these teenage boys in Mom's Nancy's Intimate Apparel, long fleece, beautiful robes. That was so thrilling as a teenager, but kind of a funny way to use all your clothing, I suppose, right?
I was the best customer.
Yes, you were the best customer. That's true. Okay, we won't ask about the profits if you took so much home, right?
So we had that, and but again, it shows. Well, for me, that was showing some warmth to your friends.
It was, of course, yes.
And so we shared what we had.
You shared what we had, yeah, and called all the parents, told everybody they were safe, right, and dried their clothes, I think. Mom, has anything else come to mind about the stores you want to say before we move to Florida now?
No, it was interesting. It was challenging. It was it introduced me to the local community. During that time, I learned to golf, and so the club that your dad was golfing at, and I decided, well, I needed to have an out sometime a week during a week too to do something, and so I learned to play golf during that time, and so the persons that were there learned about my business.
You networked, whereas the men,
I didn't know I was doing that.
You didn't know it was intentional networking, but Dad was definitely networking and having fun on the golf course. I'm sure that, what was and perhaps still does continue to be a networking place for many men and can be for women and is more and more for women. But you then, because you had moved because you enjoyed playing so much,